The day humanity's unmatched power silenced the Galactic Council. Part 1. The Galactic Council Chamber was the largest structure ever built by intelligent beings. It floated in the empty space between 3 star systems, a massive sphere of crystal and metal that could hold millions. Inside its great hall, representatives from 847 species sat in rising rows that stretched toward a ceiling so high it had its own weather system. Clouds formed near the top, and sometimes it rained on the upper delegates. Ambassador Park Hana stood at the center of this impossible room and felt very small. She was a tall woman with gray hair pulled back in a tight knot. Her face showed the calm expression she had practiced for 30 years of diplomatic service. But inside, her heart beat fast. Around her, beings of every shape and size watched with eyes, sensors, and organs she could not name. Some were as small as insects. Others were larger than buildings. All of them were looking at her. The human delegation will explain their presence in Valdori territory, said High Arbiter Quelix. The Arbiter was a being made of living crystal, 12 meters tall, with light moving through their body like blood. Their voice came from everywhere at once. You have been granted the right to speak. Hannah bowed her head slightly. Thank you, High Arbiter. The human delegation is grateful for this opportunity. She paused and looked around the chamber. Humanity had been part of the Galactic Union for only 12 years. In galactic terms, they were newborns. Most species here had traveled between stars for thousands of years. Some had done so for millions. To them, humans were barely worth noticing. That was about to change. Earth's colony in the Outer Rim was established with full approval from the Settlement Committee, Hana said. Her voice was carried by invisible technology to every corner of the vast room. We have documentation showing. Your documentation means nothing. The voice was deep and harsh, like metal scraping against stone. High Marshal Phoenix stepped forward from the Valdori section. He was 7 meters tall, covered in black armor that grew from his own body. His species had evolved as apex predators on a heavy gravity world. They had 4 arms, each ending in claws that could cut through steel. His eyes burned red in a face that looked like it was made for nightmares. Humans have no right to be in space that the Valdori claimed 10,000 years ago, Phoenix growled. Your little colony sits on ground that belongs to us by ancient law. Hannah kept her voice steady. The Settlement Committee records show that area was classified as unclaimed. The Valdori had no active presence there for over 2,000 years. We do not need to be present to own what is ours. Threnix's claws clicked together with a sound like gunshots. You are children playing in the territory of gods. You should be grateful we are giving you the chance to leave before we remove you by force. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Many species nodded in agreement. The strong took what they wanted. The weak accepted what they were given. This was how the galaxy had worked for longer than most species could remember. High Arbiter Quelix raised a crystalline hand for silence. The Valdori claim is registered. Humanity will be given 7 rotations to prepare a full response. Until then, all parties will maintain peace. Hannah bowed again. We accept these terms. Phoenix made a sound that might have been laughter. 7 rotations. Use them to pack your belongings, little human. After that, my fleet will teach you the natural order of things. He turned and walked back to his section, each step shaking the floor. Hana did not react. She simply stood there until the session was declared closed, then walked calmly toward the exit. Her guards, Captain Yu Tae-sun and Lieutenant Baek Jisu, fell into step beside her. They did not speak until they reached their ship. The Horizon's Edge. It was a small vessel compared to the massive craft of older species. But it was fast, and it carried secrets that no one in this galaxy suspected. Once the door closed behind them, Hannah let out a long breath. That went about as expected. Captain Yu was a man in his 40s, with a soldier's build and eyes that missed nothing. They want war. This trial is just for show. I know. Hannah moved to the communication station. Contact Earth Command. Priority 1. The connection took several minutes to establish across the vast distances involved. When it did, the face of Fleet Admiral Quan Do-yoon appeared on screen. He was an older man with white hair and a face carved by decades of hard decisions. "Ambassador," he said. "Report. The Valkyrie are not interested in negotiation." Marshal Threnix barely pretended otherwise. "They want our colony, and they want to make an example of us." Admiral Quan nodded slowly. "Our intelligence agrees. We have detected a Valkyrie fleet massing near their border. Current count is 200 warships." Lieutenant Beak, a young woman with sharp features and sharper instincts, looked up from her tactical station. 200 ships? We have 3 vessels in that sector." "I know," the Admiral said. "Which is why I'm sending you new orders, Captain Yu." Tae-san stepped forward. "Sir, you are to remain at the Council Station with the Ambassador. Continue the diplomatic process. Buy us time." The Admiral's eyes were hard. "Meanwhile, we will prepare our response." "What kind of response can we prepare against 200 warships?" Jisoo asked. There was no fear in her voice, only professional curiosity. Admiral Quan almost smiled. "Lieutenant, humanity has been in space for just over a century. In that time, we have watched this galaxy very carefully. We saw how older species treat younger ones. We saw the Valkyrie destroy the Kelvin people. We saw the Kresh swarm consume entire worlds. We learned the truth about this galaxy." He paused. "And we prepared for it." The connection ended. Captain Yu and Lieutenant Beak exchanged looks. "What do you think he meant?" Jisoo asked. Tae-san shook his head. "I don't know. But I think the Valkyrie are about to find out." Ambassador Park Hannah looked out the viewport at the endless stars. Somewhere out there, 200 warships were moving toward 2 million innocent people. Her people. Her responsibility. 7 rotations, she said quietly. "Let's make them count." In the distance, the great council chamber glowed against the darkness of space. Inside, 847 species were already forgetting about the small human delegation. They had seen young species come and go. Most were conquered. Some were destroyed. A few survived by becoming servants to the strong. None of them suspected that humanity would be different. None of them knew what was coming. And in 18 hours, when the Valkyrie fleet reached New Hope Colony, the galaxy would learn why silence could be the most terrifying sound of all. The day humanity's unmatched power silenced the Galactic Council, Part 2. The second day of proceedings began with an attack, not a physical one. The Galactic Council had strict rules against violence within its walls. Instead, High Marshal Threnix attacked with evidence. "Observe," he commanded, and the center of the great chamber filled with holographic images. Stars appeared, planets spun, and then came the ships. Human vessels, clearly marked with Earth symbols, opened fire on Valkyrie patrol craft. The Valkyrie ships tried to retreat. The humans pursued them, destroying each one with cold efficiency. The images showed escape pods being targeted. They showed mercy denied. The chamber erupted in voices. Thousands of species talked at once, their translators creating a wall of sound that made thinking impossible. High Arbiter Quelix raised their crystalline arms, and a deep tone filled the room. Silence followed. "This evidence is disturbing," Quelix said. "Ambassador Park, humanity will respond." Hannah stood slowly. Her face showed nothing, but Captain Yu could see the tension in her shoulders. She walked to the center of the chamber, her footsteps echoing in the sudden quiet. "High Arbiter," she said, I request permission to examine this evidence more closely. Threnix made a sound of disgust. The evidence is clear. Your ships attacked ours. Your people murdered ours. There is nothing to examine. If the evidence is so clear, Hana replied calmly, then the Voldori should have no objection to closer inspection. Quelix nodded. The request is reasonable. Proceed. The holographic display expanded around Hana. She walked through it slowly, looking at details that most beings would miss. Captain Yu watched from the human section, his hand resting near his communication device. Commander Ro Yejun, their intelligence officer back on the horizon's edge, was feeding information directly to his earpiece. The star field, Ro's voice said quietly. Look at the position of the binary stars in the background. Hana pointed at two bright dots in the corner of the image. These stars. According to Voldori records, this attack happened on the 14th cycle of the current year. Is that correct? Threnix nodded impatiently. Yes, what of it? Binary stars move in predictable patterns, Hana said. On the 14th cycle, these two stars would have been 7 degrees apart. In this image, they are 12 degrees apart. She turned to face the chamber. This recording was made at least 3 months before the alleged attack. Murmurs filled the room. Furthermore, Hana continued, the ship designations visible on the human vessels do not exist. The vessel marked H447 was never built. Our shipyards have records going back to the first day of our space program. She walked toward Threnix, stopping just close enough to make the giant alien uncomfortable. This evidence is false. It was created to justify an invasion that was already planned. Threnix's claws extended fully, each one as long as Hana's arm. You dare accuse the Voldori hegemony of lying? I state facts, Hana replied. The Council can draw its own conclusions. The chamber buzzed with discussion. Several species who had seemed certain of human guilt now looked doubtful. The evidence they had seen was convincing, but the ambassador's points were difficult to ignore. Lieutenant Beak watched from her seat beside Captain Yu. She's good, she whispered. She has to be, Yu replied. She's all that stands between us and war. But war, it seemed, was what Threnix wanted regardless of evidence. The High Marshal stepped forward, pushing past the holographic images with enough force to scatter them into fragments of light. It does not matter, he declared. Whether this particular evidence is true or false, the fact remains. Humanity exists in space that belongs to the Voldori. That alone is crime enough. The Settlement Committee, Hana began. The Settlement Committee is a tool of weak species. Threnix roared. The Voldori do not need permission from lesser beings. We were hunting between the stars when your ancestors were still living in caves. We own what we wish to own. We take what we choose to take. He turned to address the full chamber. This is the law of the galaxy. The strong rule. The weak serve or die. Humanity is weak. They are young. They are small. They should accept their place or be taught it. Many species nodded. This was indeed how the galaxy had worked for millions of years. The Voldori were far from the only ones who believed in the right of the powerful Hana. Stood perfectly still as Threnix turned back to her. He lowered his massive head until his burning eyes were level with hers. You have fire in you, little human, he said, almost respectfully. It is wasted. In 3 cycles, my fleet will reach your colony. 2 million humans will learn what happens when small creatures challenge great ones. He stood to his full height. Unless you wish to save them. Kneel now. Declare humanity a servant species of the Voldori hegemony. Your people will live as our workers. You will mine our metals, grow our food, fight in our armies. It is more than you deserve. The chamber fell silent. Everyone watched the small human woman standing before the massive warrior. Hana took a breath. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but clear. You assume we are weak because we are young. That is a mistake your ancestors never had the chance to correct. Threnix laughed, a terrible sound like bones breaking. Your ancestors never met my kind, human. If they had, you would not exist. No, Hana agreed. But we have met your kind now, and we learn very quickly. She turned to face High Arbiter Quelix. I invoke Article 7 of the Galactic Charter. The silence that followed was different from before. This silence had weight. This silence had history. Quelix's crystalline form flickered with light patterns that you had never seen before. You understand what you are invoking? I do. Article 7 has not been used in 4,000 years. I am aware. Threnix looked uncertain for the first time. What is this Article 7? An ancient voice answered. It came from the section reserved for the oldest species in the galaxy. Being so powerful, they rarely spoke. The Morvathi were creatures of pure energy, older than most stars. Their representative was a shape of living light that hurt to look at directly. Article 7, the Morvathi said, is the right of any species to defend itself by any means necessary. It removes all restrictions on methods of warfare. It is a declaration that survival comes before law, before custom, before everything. The entity paused. The last species to invoke Article 7 no longer exists. Neither do their enemies. Neither do the 3 species who tried to intervene. Threnix tried to laugh again, but the sound was weaker. You think humans can threaten the Valdori? You have 3 ships. Hana smiled. It was not a kind smile. Marshal Threnix, she said, in 12 years you have never asked us a very important question. What question? You never asked why we only have 3 ships in that sector. She turned to the full chamber. In 7 rotations, the Galactic Council will see exactly what humanity is capable of. I suggest you watch carefully. She walked back to the human section without looking back. Commander Rowe's voice came through Yu's earpiece. Captain, the Valdori fleet just increased to 340 ships. Arrival at New Hope, 18 hours. Yu closed his eyes. 340 warships against 3 escort vessels and a colony of 2 million civilians. He looked at Ambassador Park as she sat down beside him. Her hands were shaking, but her eyes were steady. I hope Earth knows what it's doing, Jisoo whispered. So do I, Hana replied. So do I. The day humanity's unmatched power silenced the Galactic Council. Part 3. Deep beneath the surface of Earth's moon. Fleet Admiral Kwon Do-hyun walked through a corridor that did not officially exist. The walls were smooth metal, lit by soft blue lights that never flickered. Armed guards stood at every intersection. Men and women who had sworn oaths so secret that even their families did not know their true work. They saluted as the Admiral passed, but they did not speak. In this place, silence was law. At the end of the corridor was a door with no handle. Admiral Kwon placed his palm against a scanner, looked into a light that read his eye patterns, and spoke a phrase in a language that had been dead for 3,000 years. The door slid open. Inside was a room full of screens and equipment that would have confused the greatest scientists of most galactic species. Dr. Shin. Myray stood at the center of it all. A small woman in a white coat with eyes that seemed to look through objects rather than at them. Admiral, she said without turning around. I expected you. Status report, Doctor. Myray finally turned. Her face was tired but focused. She had been awake for 30 hours, running calculations and checking systems that controlled forces most beings could not imagine. Project Prometheus is ready, she said. All stations are online. Power reserves are at maximum. We can activate on your command. Admiral Quan walked to the main display. It showed a map of human space, dozens of star systems connected by trade routes and communication lines. But overlaid on this map was another network, one marked in red. Points of light sat at locations that seemed random, in empty space between systems, around dead stars, near gas giants where no colonies existed. How many nodes? He asked. 472 active stations, Myray replied. Each one is capable of independent operation, but together they form a network that can project force anywhere within human territory. And beyond? Myray hesitated. We have limited reach outside our borders. But for the New Hope system, we have full coverage. Quan nodded slowly. He had known about Project Prometheus since its earliest days, back when he was a young captain and Earth had just made contact with the wider galaxy. The things they had learned in those first years had terrified humanity's leaders. They had seen how older species treated younger ones. They had read histories of extinction, of conquest, of slavery on scales that made human wars seem like children's games. And so, in secret, they had built a weapon, not a single weapon. A network of devices that manipulated the fundamental forces of reality itself. Gravity, space, time, these were not fixed things. With enough energy and the right mathematics, they could be bent like soft metal. Human scientists had discovered this truth early in their space age. They had kept it hidden ever since. The Council believes we are weak, Quan said. They think we are children in a galaxy of monsters. That was the plan, Myray replied. Let them think we have nothing. Let them ignore us. Give us time to prepare. We have run out of time. Myray turned back to her displays. The Voldori fleet will reach New Hope in 16 hours. 340 warships. Enough firepower to burn the entire planet down to bare rock. And we will stop them. Yes. Marie's voice was flat, certain. We will stop them. On the main screen, a communication signal appeared. Admiral Quan accepted it, and the face of Captain Yu Tae-sun appeared. Admiral, the situation at the Council is getting worse. More species are siding with the Voldori. Ambassador Park invoked Article 7, but many think we are bluffing. They will learn otherwise soon enough. Captain, I need you to prepare for a broadcast. When Prometheus activates, every species in the galaxy will see what happens. I want you to speak for humanity. You looked uncertain. Sir, what exactly will they see? Something they will never forget. Quan paused. Captain, what I am about to tell you is classified at the highest level. You will not speak of it to anyone except those already cleared. Understood. Prometheus does not work like conventional weapons. We will not fire missiles at the Voldori fleet. We will not send ships to intercept them. We will reach out across space and remove them from existence. You was silent for a long moment. Remove them? We have learned to control the fabric of space itself. We can fold it, twist it, compress it. We can create gravity wells in empty space. We can make 2 points that are light years apart touch for a single instant. Quan's voice was heavy. The Voldori fleet will be destroyed without a single human soldier entering combat. They will die without ever seeing who killed them. That is, you struggle to find words. Terrifying. Yes, it is meant to be. Quan leaned forward. We are not the strongest species in this galaxy, Captain. Not yet. Perhaps not ever. But after today, everyone will know that attacking humanity is not worth the cost. Fear will protect us when strength cannot. The communication ended. You stared at the blank screen for a long time. Lieutenant Beak approached him quietly. Captain? What did the Admiral say? He told me what Prometheus is. You turned to look at her. Jisoo, We are about to show the galaxy something impossible. I need you to be ready. Ready for what? I don't know exactly. But I know that after today, nothing will be the same. Back on Luna, Admiral Kwan stood beside Dr. Myray as she ran final checks. We have never used Prometheus at full power, she said. The simulations suggest it will work as designed, but simulations are not reality. We have no choice. If we do nothing, 2 million people die. If we use conventional forces, we lose, and then all of humanity becomes a target. Juan placed his hand on her shoulder. This is what we built it for. This is why you and your team have worked for 50 years in secret. Myray nodded. Her fingers moved across controls that would reshape history. There is one more thing, Admiral. When we activate Prometheus, every species with advanced sensors will detect it. They will know something happened that should be impossible. Some will want to know how. Some will want to take it from us. Let them wonder. Let them try. Kwan's voice was cold. After today, attacking humanity will be the last mistake anyone makes. The countdown began. 16 hours until the Volduri fleet reached New Hope. 16 hours until Project Prometheus awakened for the first time. In the council chamber, the Marvathi Elder floated silently in their section. Unlike other species, they did not need to speak through translators or use communication devices. They simply observed. They had watched humanity since the moment the small species had left their home planet. They had seen the secret construction, the hidden networks, the careful preparations. The Marvathi were 6 million years old. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had seen galaxy-spanning civilizations burn themselves to nothing, but they had never seen anything quite like humanity. The Elder spoke to no one and everyone at once. The words passed through the chamber like a breeze, heard only by those who needed to hear them. They are coming into their power now. Watch carefully. What happens next will determine the shape of this galaxy for the next 10,000 years. No one responded. Perhaps no one heard. But deep in space, between the stars themselves, lights began to glow in the darkness. Project Prometheus was waking up, and the galaxy would never be the same. The day humanity's unmatched power silenced the Galactic Council. Part 4. The Volduri fleet entered the New Hope system like a wave of death. 340 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Each ship was a mountain of black metal and weapons, designed over 10,000 years of conquest to break planets and crush resistance. They spread across space in a pattern that left no escape route for the tiny human colony below. High, Marshal Thrinnick stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Endless Hunger. Through the massive view screen, he could see the blue-green world that would soon belong to his people. 2 million humans lived on that world. They would not live much longer. Begin broadcast to the Galactic Council, he commanded. Let everyone see what happens to species that challenge the Volduri. Across the galaxy, screens activated in the council chamber. 847 species watched as the Volduri fleet approached its target. Some watched with satisfaction, others with fear. A few with pity. Captain Yutei-san watched from the human section, his jaw tight. Ambassador Park sat beside him, her hands folded in her lap. It's starting, Jisoo whispered from his other side. They're going to attack. Yu shook his head slowly. No, the attack has already begun. They just don't know it yet. In the New Hope system, the 3 human escort vessels held their position between the fleet and the planet. They were small, barely visible against the massive Volduri warships. Their crews had been offered evacuation. Every single one had refused. Captain Moon Yoonji commanded the lead ship, the Dawn's Light. She was 40 years old, a veteran of 20 years of exploration missions. She had never fought in a real battle, But she stood on her bridge with complete calm. "All ships," she said over the communication system. "Maintain position. Do not fire unless fired upon." "Captain," her tactical officer said, "the Voldori are powering weapons. I see them. We cannot survive even one volley from that fleet." "I know." Yunji smiled slightly. "We don't have to." High Marshal Threnix raised one massive arm. "Human vessels, you have one chance. Surrender, and you may live as slaves. Resist, and you will be destroyed." The communication screen showed Captain Moon's face. She looked so small, so fragile compared to the armored giant threatening her. "Marshal Threnix," she said clearly, "on behalf of the people of Earth and all human colonies, I offer you the same choice. Withdraw your fleet. Return to your own space. Allow this matter to be settled peacefully." Laughter erupted on the Voldori bridge. Even Threnix made the grinding sound that passed for amusement in his species. "Settled peacefully? You have 3 ships against 340. What could you possibly do to stop us?" Yunji's expression did not change. "You are about to find out." She pressed a single button on her console. Somewhere far away, in the dark between stars, Dr. Shinmai received the signal. Her fingers moved across controls. Her voice was steady as she spoke. "Prometheus activation confirmed. Beginning sequence." Admiral Quan stood behind her, watching the screens. "May God forgive us for what we are about to do." In the New Hope system, nothing happened for exactly 3 seconds. Then everything changed. The stars moved. That was the only way the watching species could describe it. The stars themselves seemed to shift, to bend, to twist. Space that had been empty suddenly glowed with light that came from nowhere. High Marshal Threnix felt his ship shake. Alarms screamed across every Voldori vessel. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Report." "Marshal, I." His tactical officer stared at his screens with wide eyes. "The readings make no sense. Space is folding. Gravity is changing. Our navigation systems are failing. That's impossible." "Marshal!" Another officer shouted. "The Ravager and the Blood Oath." There, through the view screen, Threnix watched as 2 of his warships simply collapsed into each other. One moment, they were 500 meters apart. The next, they occupied the same space. The explosion was brief and absolute. It was just the beginning. Across the fleet, ships began to die in ways that violated every law of physics the galaxy had ever known. Some were compressed into points of light as artificial gravity wells formed around them. Some were torn apart as the space they occupied stretched in different directions. Some simply disappeared. Their matter scattered across dimensions that living beings were not meant to see. In the council chamber, absolute silence fell. Species that had conquered stars watched with open mouths. Species that had existed for millions of years saw something they could not explain. Species that had thought themselves the masters of reality discovered that they understood nothing. 40-7 seconds. That was how long it took. 340 Voldori warships, crewed by over 2 million soldiers, reduced to expanding clouds of debris. Not a single weapon had been fired by human hands. Not a single human vessel had moved. The Voldori High Marshal watched his entire fleet die around him. His ship was the last. The endless hunger hung alone in space that now contained nothing but wreckage. Threnix stood frozen on his bridge, his crew too shocked to speak. Then Captain Moon's face appeared on his screen again. "Marshal Threnix," she said, "your fleet has been neutralized. 2 million humans on New Hope remain safe. You have failed." Threnix tried to speak. No words came out. "I am transmitting evacuation coordinates to your vessel," Moon continued. "You will be allowed to leave this system and return to Voldori space. You will not be harmed. Consider this mercy from a species you called weak." The communication ended. Threnix looked at his crew. For the first time in his long life, he had no orders to give in the council chamber. Captain Yu stood and walked to the center of the great hall. Every eye, sensor, and organ in the room focused on him. "The colony of New Hope is secure," he said, his voice carrying to every corner. "Valdori forces have been neutralized. Humanity awaits the council's judgment." No one responded. No one could. High Arbiter Quellix's crystalline form flickered with patterns that had no name. Their voice, usually so calm and powerful, shook slightly. "How?" The word was barely a whisper. "How did you do this?" You looked up at the ancient being. "That is not a question we are prepared to answer. You must tell us. The galaxy has a right to know what weapon you have created." "With respect, High Arbiter, the galaxy has shown us exactly what it does to young species that cannot protect themselves." Yu's voice hardened. "Humanity will keep its secrets. The galaxy will simply have to accept that attacking us is no longer a safe option." Threnix's flagship limped out of the New Hope system, leaving behind the wreckage of his once mighty fleet. The surviving crew would spread the story of what they had witnessed. Within days, every species in the galaxy would know what humanity had done. Ambassador Park stood and joined Captain Yu at the center of the chamber. Her voice was calm, steady, certain. "You asked what right humanity has to exist in this galaxy. Now you have seen our answer." She looked around at the shocked faces surrounding her. "The question before this council is no longer about humanity's future. It is about yours." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We came to this galaxy hoping to find partners, friends, allies in the great journey of existence. Instead, we found predators who saw us as prey. We learned that mercy is called weakness here. We learned that young species survive only by luck or by hiding." Her voice rose slightly. "We refuse to accept that lesson. And now you see the result." The silence continued. It would become famous in the years to come. The moment when 1,000 species discovered that everything they believed about power and strength had been wrong. Lieutenant Beak watched from the human section, her heart pounding. She had always known humanity was special, but she had never imagined anything like this. Beside her, an empty seat reminded her that Commander Rowe was still aboard the Horizon's Edge, still coordinating with Earth Command. She wondered what he was thinking. She wondered what anyone was thinking. Then, from the section of the Ancient Ones, a light began to glow brighter. The Marvathi Elder was moving forward. Whatever came next would change history forever. The day humanity's unmatched power silenced the Galactic Council, Part 5. The chaos began moments after Ambassador Park finished speaking. Species that had allied with the Valdori scrambled to distance themselves. Representatives of the Kresh Swarm declared that they had never supported aggression against humanity. The Obsidian Compact announced that their relationship with the Valdori had always been purely economic. Across the chamber, alliances that had stood for millennia crumbled in seconds. High Marshal Threnix's image appeared on the main display, broadcast from his damaged flagship. His voice was no longer confident. "This cannot be allowed. A young species cannot simply threaten the established powers. The galaxy must unite against this danger." "Unite?" A representative of the Triloth Federation laughed bitterly. "You asked the galaxy to watch your great victory. Instead, we watched your fleet vanish like dust and wind. Why should anyone follow you now?" Threnix tried to speak again, but no one listened. His image flickered and disappeared. High Arbiter Quellix struggled to maintain order. Their crystalline body glowed with stress patterns that many species had never seen before. Silence. "The Council will have order." The noise continued. Fear did what law could not. It made species that had been silent for centuries suddenly very talkative. Then the Marvathi Elder. Moved. The being of living light floated from there. Section toward the center of the chamber. As they passed, silence followed. Even the most frightened species stopped their noise when they saw the ancient one approaching. The Morvathi had existed for 6 million years. They had seen civilizations rise and fall. They had watched the formation of empires and their eventual destruction. They almost never spoke in council sessions. When they did, everyone listened. The elder stopped beside Ambassador Park and Captain Yu. Light played across their form in patterns too complex for most minds to understand. "We have watched," the Morvathi said. Their voice was like music, like wind, like something that existed at the edge of hearing. "For 6 million years, we have watched the cycle repeat. The strong rise. The strong conquer. The strong fall. New strong ones take their place. The weak are forgotten." They turned slowly, addressing the entire chamber. "We have watched species that could have achieved greatness destroy themselves instead. We have watched empires that could have built wonders choose to build weapons. We have watched this galaxy consume itself again and again." The light within the elder pulsed. "We have waited. We have hoped. We have wondered if any species would choose differently." They turned back to the human representatives. "And now one has." Park kept her expression neutral, but you could see the slight trembling in her hands. "Elder," she said carefully, "I am not certain I understand." "Humanity had a choice today," the Morvathi said. "You could have destroyed the Voldori homeworld. You could have announced that anyone who challenged you would face the same fate. You could have used your power to become the new masters of this galaxy." The light shifted. "Instead, you showed mercy. You allowed your enemies to live. You offered peace to those who had promised you destruction." The elder's voice grew stronger. "In 6 million years, we have never seen this. The strong do not spare the weak. The powerful do not offer peace to those they have defeated. It is not the way of this galaxy." Quelix stepped forward. "Elder, with respect, what humanity has shown today is not mercy. It is a threat. They have demonstrated power beyond anything we have ever. Power restrained is more terrifying than power unleashed." The Morvathi interrupted. "That is precisely the point. Humanity could have become the greatest tyrants this galaxy has ever seen. They chose not to." Park finally spoke. "We did not seek this power to rule others. We developed it because we had to. We saw what happens to young species in this galaxy. We refused to become victims. But we also refused to become the very thing we feared." She stepped forward, addressing the full chamber. "Humanity offers the Galactic Union a choice. Continue the old ways. Let the strong prey on the weak. Let young species be destroyed or enslaved. Let fear and violence rule between the stars. Or help us build something new." "Something new?" a representative called out. "What could humans possibly offer us?" "Protection," Park replied. "For every species too small to defend itself. Justice for those wronged by more powerful neighbors. A galaxy where being young and small does not mean being prey." Threnix's voice crackled over the communication system again. "Do not listen to them. They will use their power to control everyone. Today they show mercy. Tomorrow they will demand obedience." Park shook her head. "We demand nothing. We offer a path forward. What each species chooses is their own decision." She held up a data crystal. "This contains a new charter. It protects young species from conquest. It creates mechanisms for peaceful resolution of conflicts. It ensures that what almost happened to New Hope can never happen again. And if we refuse," someone asked, "then nothing changes. Humanity will protect its own borders and its own interests. We will not force anyone to accept this charter, but we will defend those who sign it." The chamber fell silent as species considered the offer. Many looked at each other uncertainly. This was not how galactic politics worked. Power was used, not offered. The strong took, they did not give. Qualix consulted with other council officials. Finally, they turned back to the chamber. The council will vote on humanity's proposed charter. All species, register your position. The voting took several hours. Species argued, negotiated, made calculations. Some voted immediately in favor, eager to gain protection from a species that could destroy fleets with a thought. Others hesitated, suspicious of human motives. A few voted against, unable to accept that power could be used for anything but domination. When the final count was complete, Qualix announced the results. 847 species have registered votes. In favor, 792. Against, 31. Abstaining, 24. Park closed her eyes briefly. They had done it. The charter is adopted, Qualix said. From this day forward, the Galactic Union will operate under new principles. May history judge us kindly for this choice. Captain Yu stood beside the ambassador as species began filing out of the chamber. Many stopped to speak with the human delegation. Some offered congratulations. Others asked questions about the charter. A few simply wanted to look at the beings who had changed everything. Lieutenant Beak approached them once the crowd had thinned. "Captain, Admiral Quan wishes to speak with you." You nodded and moved to a private communication station. The Admiral's face appeared, looking tired but satisfied. "You did well, Captain." "Sir, I still don't fully understand what happened." Quan smiled slightly. "None of us do fully. Dr. Myra and her team spent 50 years developing technology that bends the basic rules of reality. I doubt anyone alive truly understands it all. What happens now? Now comes the hard part." Quan leaned back. "We showed them our power. Now we have to show them our character. That means keeping promises, building trust, protecting those who need protection. Power is easy. Wisdom is difficult." The communication ended. You returned to the main hall, where Ambassador Park was speaking with the Morvathi elder. "Thank you," she was saying. "Your support made the difference." The elder's light shifted in what might have been the equivalent of a smile. "We have waited 6 million years for a species capable of breaking the old ways. We did not expect them to choose mercy. We did not expect them to be so young." Park nodded. "We are young. We have much to learn." "Yes," the elder agreed. "But you have shown that youth is not always weakness. Sometimes it is hope." The elder floated away, leaving the human delegation alone in the center of the great chamber. Jisoo walked up to stand beside her captain. "Do you think this will work? Do you think we can really change the galaxy?" You looked around at the empty seats where so many species had made their decision. "I don't know. But I know that today we gave them a choice they never had before. What they do with it is up to them." On New Hope, 2 million humans looked up at a sky that was no longer filled with enemy ships. They did not know exactly what had happened. They only knew that they were safe. Across the galaxy, news of the day's events spread faster than light. Species that had never heard of humanity now spoke their name. Some spoke with fear, some with admiration, some with hope. And in the silence that had fallen over the Galactic Council, that profound, galaxy-spanning silence, a new era began. For the first time in recorded history, the strong had chosen to protect the weak. The powerful had offered justice instead of domination. No one knew if it would last. No one knew what challenges lay ahead. But for one moment, in the vastness of space, a young species had shown that power was not the only thing that mattered. Character mattered too, and perhaps, just perhaps, that would be enough to change everything.